Hello to everyone from me and my massive stack of books. We have made it to the end of July. I promised you a video every week in July and I have delivered and I'm exhausted. I don't know how the girlies do these videos every week. Major props to you all. You are professionals. I don't have it. We will be going back to our regularly scheduled every other week from here on out, especially because I do go back to work in August, but we'll worry about that later. For now, we need to address this giant stack of books. To close out the end of July, I am going to be doing a wrap up. I have not done a wrap up on my channel that wasn't a short since April. So we have 3 months worth of books to catch up on. I thought I would do a big summer wrap up. I read 40 books. I've ranked them all from least favorite to favorite. It's gonna be a good time. 2 quick caveats. Just because a book is near the bottom of my list doesn't mean that I'm saying it's a bad book necessarily. Normally if a book is bad, I just DNF it. So everything that I finish, I feel like has some sort of merit. To me, my ratings and rankings tend to be more about my personal enjoyment. So this is all very subjective. Also, because we have 40 books to get through, I am not gonna be able to talk for very long about each book, which I have a lot to say about some of these. So there are links in the description to a bunch of reading vlogs that a good portion of these books appear in. And there's also a link to my storygraph account. Storygraph is the book tracking app that I use. I write a full-length review for everything that I read over there. So that link is always in the description if you're interested in connecting with me over there, or you want a longer review for something that you hear me talk about on the channel, definitely head over to my Storygraph account. I think that's all the intro we need. Let's get into the books. Number 40. Oh, I guess I should add that I don't have physical copies of all of these books, so I went old school. I have pieces of paper because I needed to be physically organized. But I will obviously be popping the cover up on the screen so y'all can see it and have a better idea of what I'm talking about. But number 40, bottom of the pyramid, unfortunately, is When the Museum is Closed by Emma Yagi. This is like a weird girl lit literary fiction. It's about this woman whose job is to talk to this statue at a museum in Latin, and her and this statue like develop a relationship. This sort of weird girl lit just really doesn't work for me usually. I gave this one a try because I was interested in like the museum setting and the Latin and all of that, but it just ended up being weird in a way that I did not enjoy. Book number 39 is another literary fiction. This is American Fantasy by Emma Straub. This is about a cruise ship where this like kind of washed up 90s boy band will go on fan cruises with all of their like middle-aged women fans. And you just kind of see the collision, you know, of performer and grown-up fangirl and the staff on the boat. And I thought that examination of fan culture was interesting, but I felt like the book didn't know what it wanted to be. Like, is this commercial women's fiction or is this literary fiction? It kind of straddled the middle in a weird way that I didn't enjoy. And my main complaint is that just as like the plot started getting interesting and things started happening, the book ended. It really kind of made me mad. I don't recommend. Next up, we have Hair on Fire, Afghan Women Poets. I read a good amount of poetry and nonfiction that I leave unrated, like I don't give it a star rating. So I kind of had to figure out where I wanted to fit it in here. And again, I'm not saying that like these books towards the bottom were bad. I wouldn't say this was a bad book at all. Like the title suggests, this is the poetry of different women who are Afghani or in the Afghani diaspora. I thought they were good. I liked them as I was reading them, but the second I finished the book or even put it down, I like completely forgot all of it. Next up, I already forgot what number we're on. 37. Okay. Counting down from 40. At 37 is A Silent Appeal by Janice Hallett. I really like Janice Hallett's books. She writes these epistolary murder mysteries. This one is actually a sequel to a previous book called The Appeal. It's set with this group of like amateur dramatists. I find that her books follow a formula and I like that formula, but for me, it doesn't work if I read her books close together because they are so similar. And unfortunately, I had read another book of hers not that long before. So this one just fell a little bit flat because I felt like I just read this. This next book is a perfect example of this is not a bad book. I just didn't necessarily enjoy it. And this is a collection. It's the favorite poems of Emily Dickinson. Of course, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Emily Dickinson is a bad poet. She's a great poet. She's just not my favorite poet. Next up was All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker. This is a thriller. It's historical, although it covers, I think, like a period of 30 years. It's about this small town in Missouri where girls are going missing, and this young outcast boy actually saves a girl from being kidnapped, and in doing so, like kicks off this series of events that we kind of follow over the next several decades. There were things about the book that I liked, but overall I felt like it went on way too long. He needed to tighten this thing up. Number 34, and the third of the 3 poetry collections that I read this month, unfortunately they're all in the bottom 10. I didn't have great luck with poetry this summer, was Hafez and the Poets of Shiraz. This collection was edited and translated by Dick Davis, and it was long. There were a lot of poems in here, and they were really repetitive, I felt. The thing that I liked the most about this book was actually the translator's introduction. I felt like I got a lot of really good information about the history of Iran, of Persia, and some basics of Persian poetry. So I liked the introduction more than I liked the actual poetry. Next up is Ways of Hearing, Reflections on Music in 26 Pieces. These are 26 different essays, poems, interviews. There's a photo essay in here, each of them by a different author or creative. And as with any collection, some landed for me and I really liked, and then others were just kind of meh and forgettable. 2 more to round out the bottom 10. Next, it's funny to say bottom 10 because I'm looking at this title and I know I gave this book a 3.5. I think the first 2 were 2-star and 2.5 star, and everything else I would consider a 3 or above. I just like the books I read, okay? The next book up is Accomplice to the Villain, which is the 3rd book in the Assistant to the Villain series by, I think, Hannah Nicole Mehrer. I don't know how to say her name. This is like a comedy, romantasy. People say it's kind of like The Office. I never really got that, but it's just like a workplace romantasy with a lot of humor in it. It's very goofy. It's like a stupid, silly, fun time. The plot, I would say, is like the weakest part of the series, and that's why this 3rd book has probably been my least favorite of them so far, because everything's just so convoluted. I don't really know what's going on, and at this point I'm just reading for like the yearning of our main romantic pair. The 4th book does come out next month and I'm excited to finish it up, but I do think it's time for the series to be done. Last book in the bottom 10, and it's sad to say bottom 10 because I actually really did enjoy this book, but this is Women's Hotel by Daniel M. Lavery. This is a novel, but to me it read a little bit more like a collection of short stories or a collection of kind of character studies and anecdotes. It centers around women who lived at this women's hotel in New York, and it's written in a very quirky, clever, it almost feels like an early 20th century style of writing. I love that sort of thing. I felt like the author did a really good job of coming up with some really zany characters and putting them in some really funny situations. I found this really amusing. I just wished it had a better overall structure. I felt like it got a little lost with what it was trying to do sometimes, but I really liked the writing style. Moving into the next group of 10, and we are still ratings wise in like the 3.5 zone. Dawnshard by Brandon Sanderson. This is a novella from the Stormlight Archive series, and I really like the novellas in this series because it's nice to break up the larger books, but there was nothing really in this one that blew me away. There was one big thing that happened that I was like, ooh, that's kind of interesting lore wise. It was good because Brandon Sanderson is a good writer, but that's kind of all it was. Next up, we've got a slew of like Kindle books here, so we've got a lot of little slips, is Pharaoh's Daughter by Georgette Heyer. Georgette Heyer was a 20th century author who wrote 19th century Regency romances. She's kind of considered the godmother of the historical romance genre, and what I've liked about her books, the ones that I've read so far, is that I feel like she has a really good gift for banter. She also just puts her characters in like the craziest, zaniest situations, so they're just fun. I always enjoy them as a palate cleanser. You know what? I told myself, don't get so excited about giving a review that you forget to give a quick plot summary, and I definitely did. Pharaoh's Daughter, historical romance. It's an enemies to lovers. She works in this like gaming club that her aunt owns, and he is this kind of stuck up aristocrat, and he finds out that his nephew, I think, or his cousin, has fallen in love with this woman, and he goes in to try and break them up, and hijinks ensue. Whoa, almost knocked over the stack. That would be crazy. Next up, another romance, this one contemporary. We have The Night We Met by Abby Jimenez. I love Abby Jimenez's romance, so it makes me really sad to put one this far down on the list, but this is probably the least favorite of hers I've read in a while. Her books are usually like easy 5 stars for me. This book and the book from last year, I feel like have just been a lot sadder than her normal stories. It's been more like rom-dram than rom-com. not a lot of calming, not a lot of laughing, a lot of tears and sadness. This book has a really complicated setup. Our main female character is in a relationship, but the actual main male character, who is her happily, ever after, is her boyfriend's best friend. So it was very tricky waters to navigate. I felt like she navigated it well, but it was just pretty sad and depressing because they were in a really difficult situation for like the entire book. Next up, I have Come Tell Me How You Live by Agatha Christie. This book was so unexpectedly fun. I don't even remember how I found it. It just popped up, I think on Kindle Unlimited, and I was like, oh, that could be fun. So this is Agatha Christie's memoirs about a period of several years when she would go out with her archaeologist husband, her second husband, on these digs in Syria. She just brings her like signature wit and charm and clever writing. Everything is pretty anecdotal. She tells us at the very beginning of the book, like, hey, this is gonna be really quotidian. Do not expect anything profound. But I actually really enjoyed that she talked so much about the day-to-day, the struggles and the comedy of what happened to them in the day-to-day when they were over there. Finally, back to a physical book. Oh no, I knew a slip was gonna stick. We have The Exquisite Torment of Loving Your Enemy by Bridget Knightley. This is the second book in the Dearly Beloved series. We'll talk about the first one in a little bit. I obviously, because I'm talking about this one first, liked it a little bit less than the first book. This duology is an enemies to lovers romantasy. Bridget Knightley has this really unique writing style that I love. She writes in a pretty elevated way. She uses a lot of really big words. She uses these kind of antiquated turns of phrase, and then she combines that with like kind of crass and childish humor. I think it probably wouldn't work for everybody, but it actually really, really works for me. These books are a lot of fun. I was the littlest bit disappointed with how she wrapped it up. I wanted more plot, but the romance did come together in a satisfying way. So next up, we do have The Appeal by Janice Hallett. So this is why the Silent Appeal didn't work for me very much, is because I read the first book in that series a month or two before. Again, like I said, epistolary, twisty crime novel, murder mystery set with a group of amateur dramatists. They are just the most obnoxious people you've ever met in your life. You can't imagine people that you love to hate more than them, but it's fun to hate them. With that, we are into 4 stars. So we're still in the bottom half and we're talking about 4-star reads. Man, blessed. I'm so blessed. Next up, we have Marvelous by Molly Greeley. This is a historical fiction. So it is a fictionalized retelling of the true story that inspired the Beauty and the Beast. So it's not a Beauty and the Beast retelling. There was an actual boy, his name was Pedro, who was born like covered in hair, and he was kidnapped and brought into the French court. Catherine de Medici actually loved him so much. He was kind of, her little pet, that she arranged for him to take a wife, and they had a family together. And this story is really like the story of that marriage and family, and of these two people forced together and how they kind of came to really care for one another and create a beautiful family. I really liked it. I thought it was really fun. It was definitely a slower read, but if you're looking for like really kind of interesting off the beaten path historical fiction, I would really recommend checking this one out. Next up, we have Living by Fiction by Annie Dillard. This is a book of literary criticism. She is writing about what she calls, how did I already forget? She said it so many times, contemporary modernist fiction, which she's basically talking about postmodernism. She doesn't even know it because she's writing it at the time that literature was transitioning kind of from modernism into postmodernism. I wouldn't even say that those are authors that I gravitate towards and read a lot of their work, but I just really liked how Annie Dillard expressed herself, and I just thought she had obviously some really good ideas. I had a lot of fun with this book. Next up, we do have this gorgeous book. This is, I don't even know like how to actually say the title. I think the title is A Darker Shore, Letters from Ketterdam, but Six of Crows is really big at the top. So this is the new book in the Six of Crows series. It's a novella set post Crooked Kingdom, and it's this really kind of fun, like interactive, epistolary. It's just a gorgeous book. It's so short that story-wise there's not a lot to it, but I love these characters so much. It was like picking at crumbs, but I didn't even mind. Just the little tidbits of information that we got, and there are some really, really fun interactive elements that made this just a really pleasant reading experience. I still feel like this was a little bit of a cash grab, but it honestly worked because I bought it and have it in my hands and love it. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I almost kind of want to read it again. Last one, and then we are into the top half. This is Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. This is a nonfiction book. Gawande is a doctor, and he spent like over a decade, I think, of his life, really interrogating and studying end-of-life care. And he's asking some pretty big questions about how to care really for the elderly and the sick, and not just, you know, extend their lives at any cost, but make sure that they have good quality of life all the way up to the end. It sounds kind of morbid and sad, but I actually thought that he did a really good job of making it not such a downer. He grounds everything in real people's stories, and it actually made it a much more engaging read than I expected. Top half, top 20. I feel like I gotta speed it up. I feel like I'm still talking too much. I'm trying to go fast. Next, we have The Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles. This is historical fiction about a boy who gets out of juvie, essentially, in Nebraska, and when he gets home, realizes that two friends have snuck out of juvie with him. This like crazy madcap journey ensues. It's a very Odyssey-inspired tale, and I just think Amor Towles is such a good writer. He does such a good job with character work, and I was really surprised by how much I cared about these boys and their story by the end. Next is Seasons of Glass and Iron by Amal El-Matar. This is a collection of short stories with a few poems in there, actually. I listened to it on audio. The narrator is absolutely incredible. She does such a good job bringing these stories to life. El-Matar writes fantasy, folklore, fairy tale, sapphic. That's kind of her signature style. And several of these stories, like, I still think about regularly. So I would definitely recommend. Next up, and you may recognize this cover, this is the first book in the Dearly Beloved duology. I think I liked this one just a little bit more than the second, because I think I had more hope for the plot. Like, I felt like the plot and the world building was weak, but I was like, oh, but she still has room to go in the second one. And then she kind of didn't. But I did reread this one before the second book came out, and I had just as much fun with it the first time. The banter is bantering, the yearning is yearning. It's just a good time. Next up, we have On Writing by Stephen King. This is a really unique blend of memoir and writing manual. So he's giving writing advice, but he's combining it with a lot of personal experience. He shares stories from his childhood and young adult that talk about how he became a writer and all the things that led to him developing as a writer. I've read some fiction from Stephen King and didn't really love it. This is definitely the thing I've enjoyed by him most so far. We're still in the 4-star range, by the way, just so you know. I'll let you know when we bump up to like 4.5 and above. It probably won't be until the top 10 because I'm picky. So next up, we have The Unicorn Hunters by Katherine Arden. I love Katherine Arden. She writes my favorite style of historical fiction that is super well researched and really grounded in place and time, and then adds a little bit of a fantasy twist into it. So this one is set in the court of Anne of Brittany, and it's just she's trying to save her kingdom from being, you know, taken over essentially by the French. And she is a schemer and a wheeler and a dealer, and she is just desperately trying to do anything she can to save her kingdom. I didn't feel like this book had the perfect blend of history and fantasy that Katherine Arden's other books have, which is why it has a 4-star rating. But I really did love the character of Anne. Katherine Arden writes strong female protagonists so well, and Anne is like up there with the rest of them. Next up, we have a reread of The Flatshare by Beth O'Leary. This is probably one of my favorite contemporary romances. It's about two people who end up becoming roommates or flatmates because they're British, but they've never met each other. They communicate through post-it notes, and obviously, because it's romance, develop a relationship that eventually becomes real. But what I love about the book so much is how she gives each character a really unique voice, and she spends a lot of time developing each character as an individual. We know a lot about their lives and unique struggles. They're both going through pretty serious things, and I feel like the romance never takes over the story. Like, each of them are allowed to develop fully as people, and their stories get to develop. It's just on top of that, they also happen to fall in love. I would say, like, in the past, I would consider this a 5-star read, a 5-star romance. This time around, it didn't necessarily read that way to me, which is why it's sitting a little bit lower, but I still consider it one of my favorite romances. Next up, we have The Source of Self-Regard. I don't remember the subtitle. Selected Essays, Meditations, and Speeches by Toni Morrison. This is a collection of Morrison's writings and speeches, as the title suggests, over a period of, I think, 20 to 30 years. Of course, like, Toni Morrison has only brilliance to say. My qualms about this collection have more to do with how it was collected. They chose to arrange it topically, and so I felt like it just got really repetitive because she was saying a lot of the same things, and you would read the same sentence in like 4 essays in a row, and it just kind of got to me after a while. I wish they had chosen to arrange the collection in a different way. I feel like it could have been a little bit more effective. Next up, we have another reread. This is Tell the Wolves I'm Home by Carol Rivka Brunt. Our young protagonist, June, I think she's like a 14-year-old girl, has this really special relationship and connection to her uncle who dies of AIDS. I think this book is set in, 1987. Him dying is like, it's not a spoiler, it's, page 1. And really, this is the story of how June like works through that grief, developing some new relationships. It's a really complicated story. There are a lot of kind of things that you feel like morally weird about, but it's also just so beautiful. It has a really beautiful sister relationship on the page. I had been thinking about this book ever since I read it, like maybe close to 10 years ago. And I think about it so often that I thought it might be a 5-star on reread. I think it's still a 4 just because there are certain things that make me feel a little like, ugh. I don't know. If you've read it, you'll understand. But I really can't recommend this enough. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. Next up, we have A Parade of Horribles, which is the 8th book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series by Matt Dinniman. This series overall is about this guy who gets pulled into this like alien game show after most of the life on Earth is destroyed. And he happens to bring his girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut, and Princess Donut becomes sentient. And things go from there. Like, what else can you even say? Nothing really, because everything would be a spoiler. I've had so much fun with this series. Very, very funny, but also like he really makes you care about these characters. I think this book, it felt a little transitional. Book 7 was about a floor of the dungeon that we've been building up to for a really, really long time. So I felt like it was a big climax. And after that, things kind of had to level out a little bit. And I feel like he's ramping back up to finish off the series over the next book or 2. I'm not sure how many are left, but it still was really, really good and had some really like special moments that made me cry, and also several that had me crying with laughter, because that's what Matt Dinniman does. All right, last book until we get into the top 10, which is so exciting. It is this chunker, Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. Obviously, I've been working my way through the Stormlight Archives over the last several months. This is book 4 in the series. Stormlight Archives is a high fantasy series. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm trying to think back to book 1. What can I tell you without it being a spoiler? Nothing really. You're on a planet where, nope, it's high fantasy. That's all I can tell you. The way that Sanderson has developed this story, the twists, the character development, the things that I just couldn't even see coming from like a mile off is just absolutely mind-blowing. I find these books really hard to rate and review individually because they're like so long and so much happens in each individual book that I'm like, well, maybe, this section of it, which is the length of a normal like standalone novel, would be a 5-star, but maybe this one's like a 3. I am just having the best time with this series. With that, we are into the top 10. I do think we still have one more 4-star, and then we're into 4.5 and 5 stars. So my last 4-star to tell you about is A Hobbit, A Wardrobe, and a Great War. Maybe I did give this 4.5. I don't remember. It's in the top 10, so I obviously really loved it. This is a nonfiction book. It is about C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien kind of over the turn of the 20th century and during the First World War, and how their upbringing and experiences during the war shaped their major works of literature. I've been in a real Lord of the Rings kick. I've been reading the series this year and loving it. I'm actually already rereading The Fellowship of the Ring. This is just a great kind of companion to that, and I just really, really loved this author's approach. I thought he did a really good job. There was such interesting information. And as a little bonus, for me, it had a faith angle. So it kind of talked about their Christian beliefs and how that informed their works as well. Okay, now we are for sure into the 4.5 stars because I know that I gave The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa a 4.5 star. So this is a dystopian novel set on an island where people will wake up and things have just disappeared. But there is this kind of thug force called the Memory Police who come around and enforce these disappearances. So it seems like there's this sinister force that's actually making things disappear. It's pretty bleak. It's definitely open-ended. I don't know why I loved it so much, but I love books like this so much. It's very Kazuo Ishiguro. It's very I Who Have Never Known Men, and I just thought it was so well written and very thought-provoking. Next up in 4.5 stars is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. This is a story of a friendship of 2 young girls growing up in this village on the outskirts of Naples in, I think, the 1950s. And it's just a really tough neighborhood, and these girls are quite literally fighting for their lives to survive, and they're trying to grow up and they're trying to maybe create a good life for themselves, and they're trying to care for one another in the best way that they know how. It's beautiful at times, it's frustrating at times. By the end of the book, you're really, really rooting for them. This is book 1 in a series, and I definitely want to keep going because I want to know what happens in these girls' lives. I care about them, I'm rooting for them, I hope that they succeed. Next up, we have this chunker, which is Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. This is book 3 in the Stormlight Archives. My favorite book in the Stormlight Archives so far would be book 2, Words of Radiance, but I would say this is a close second. I loved this book so much. So much of this series revolves around mental health, and even though there are like big battles and enemies that they're fighting, so much of the time the enemy really is like these characters' own struggles and them trying to deal with their pasts and their guilt and their poor like self-image. I don't know if that's making you want to read the series more, but I just find it makes for some really beautiful and emotional moments when characters like finally choose to let go, you know, of the things that are holding them back and open themselves up to love and forgiveness. And I wish you could see this stack on the floor. I'm like moving everything from this stack to the floor, and it is so precarious. It's gonna come tumbling, and then it's gonna hit the tripod, and then we're gonna have an issue. Next up is A Heart and a Body in the World by Deb Coletti. This is a reread. This is so unusual, I think, to be such a favorite for me because this is a YA book. I first read it probably about 10 years ago. I think it came out in 2017, which is when I read it. Our protagonist is Annabelle. She is an 18-year-old girl whose life has been shattered by an act of violence from a classmate. She just does not know what to do. She does not know how to move forward. And one day she just kind of snaps and decides, I'm hitting the road, I'm running. So she decides to run from Seattle to DC. Her grandpa Ed like follows behind her in his camper van to make sure that she's safe and give her a place to sleep. Along this journey, she finds healing and she finds support from people that she didn't expect. She finds solidarity, she finds a purpose. It's just such a beautiful story. I love it. I love it so much. It's one of, I think, the best YA books I've probably ever read. Next up, we have a recent read, which is A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. I adored this book so much. This is early 20th century, written and set. This young English woman named Lucy, she's been kind of sheltered, had this privileged upbringing. She goes to Italy, just starts to open up. She starts to realize how beautiful the world is. She starts to let her personality come out a little bit. She meets a potential love interest, but she's kind of like frightened off by the freedom, I guess. She does return to England and like becomes engaged to this really just stuck up, awful English man. And then her two lives kind of collide, like the Italy her and the English her, and she has to decide basically like who does she want to be. It's a romance. It's a kind of a growing up story. It has beautiful descriptions of both Italy and the English countryside. I just loved it. I love turn of the century literature. I really thought this was so good. The movie was a lot of fun too. Next up, this is our last 4.5, but actually the more I think about this book, the more I kind of want to bump it up to a 5. This is Villa Coco by Andrew Sean Greer. This book is such an unmitigated delight. This is set in the 90s. Our narrator is this young college graduate. He gets this job to go to Italy to archive the contents of this old baroness's house. That's what he thinks he's doing. And he shows up, and it turns out that really what he's been hired to be is like a companion to this eccentric old European bohemian woman. Hijinks ensue. If you couldn't tell, I love a book with hijinks. It was just so clever and funny. Andrew Sean Greer has such a way with words, how he manages to combine sincerity and humor in almost the same sentence. It's just incredible. I can't recommend it enough. We're into the top 3 and my 3 definite 5-star reads from the last 3 months. First, we have Read Until You Understand: The Profound Wisdom of Black Life and Literature by Farah Jasmine Griffin. Dr. Griffin is a pretty well-known Black feminist scholar, and each essay she talks about major Black thinkers, authors, artists that have made a profound impact on her life as well as on Black culture. She puts a lot of her story and memoir into this. She talks a lot about her father, who was the one who introduced her to all of these major artists and thinkers and authors. And I just thought it was a perfect blend of personal, but also analytical, intellectual, academic, approachable and readable. I really think the world of Dr. Griffin, and I think this is a fantastic book. My second book, and it's crazy to think that I read a book better than this because this book was so good, is Whistler by Ann Patchett. At the beginning of this book, a middle-aged woman, I think her name is Daphne, am I remembering that right? Bumps into this man at a museum, and it turns out that he was her stepfather very briefly, I think for like a year and a half or something when she was young. This meeting sets off a flurry of kind of the family coming back together and unpacking through flashbacks, but also contemporary conversations, really like what happened to break this family up, and also interrogating what these two meant to each other, the relationship between Daphne and her stepfather. I don't even remember his name. This is so bad. They had such a special relationship. They meant so much to one another, and then they were separated for like, I think over 50 years or something. And then to see them reconnect and to see how much they still love one another and care about so beautiful. I cannot recommend enough. Ann Patchett has this gift for writing characters that feel like real people. I would have sworn to you that this was a memoir. I kept having to remind myself that these people are not real. Like, you cannot go look them up and see what happened to them after the book finished because they don't exist, but they felt like they did. I just loved them. And my top read, and I think even Ann Patchett would understand this book taking the top spot, is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I actually just finished this book yesterday. I'm so glad I finished it in time because I wanted to put it on this wrap up, and I knew probably by around page 200 that this was going to take the top spot. This is a classic, of course. It follows several generations, but it's mostly set around, I would say, the turn of the 20th century. If you can tell, I really like books set in the early 1900s in this valley in California. The plot synopsis tells you that it circles around two families. I would really say that this one family, the Trasks, are at the center of the novel, and you see very complicated family relationships, especially complicated sibling relationships. You'll hear this book described as a retelling of the Cain and Abel story. I have very strong feelings about this not being a retelling of Cain and Abel. I think it's loosely based on and inspired by Cain and Abel, but I would say it's more a subversion of the Cain and Abel story. You know what? I don't even have time. I feel like I need to do a whole other video to talk about this book. When I finished it yesterday, I was literally like screaming at the wall in my house because I was just like, John Steinbeck is an incredible writer. I would say the writing in this book is unmatched. The story and the plot took a while to get going. I would say the back half of this book was definitely more meaningful to me than the front half, but the front half is essential to understand and really get the full meaning of where we end up by the end. I said I wasn't going to talk more about it, and here I am. Okay, I'm putting it down, but I just have to say, Lee, I love you. You're the hero of the story. You're the hero of my heart. I love you so much. Okay. Wow, I have no idea how long this was. I tried to be brief. I'm not sure I could have been any briefer. This was a lot of books. My room is now in disarray. All in all, I would say that I had a good 3 months of summer reading. I wish I had more 5 stars, and I'm thinking a couple of these 4.5s could maybe get bumped up. I really couldn't complain. The fact that even in the bottom half of all the books I'd read over the last 3 months, I still had 4-star reads points to a pretty good few months of reading. I know that August is not the fall. I mean, it's still like a billion degrees here. It's definitely summer, but I start teaching, like the semester starts back in the fall. To me, the brain is already shifting into fall mode. August is definitely a very transitional month for me, reading wise. Like I said, back to our regular every other week vlog. It's gonna be a little bit of push for me with my travel schedule to get the next vlog up. I think it's August 14th, but I'm gonna try my best. It might be late a day. You might get it the 15th or something. I will try very hard to get you something. Please subscribe down below so you don't miss any future videos. Say hi in the comments while you're here. Let me know how your summer reading has gone or is going if you still feel like you're in the middle of summer. And thanks for hanging out today. I will see y'all next time. Happy reading!